for many months to address this unprecedented challenge. Efforts deployed by all are truly remarkable. That being said, we must not become complacent. This is one of the most important threats that we have faced as a global community in the 21st century. Nigeria may not be appearing to be facing a second wave of Covid-19 infections, as other countries are struggling with at the moment. This said, we are facing a very unpredictable future, and there are many things we are still uncertain about regarding the Covid-19 pandemic and how it spreads and how we can best prevent it. Nigeria will face a devastating impact, however, in the months and years to come from the pandemic on its economy as well as on its social fabric. As we have seen, prices on critical commodities have increased, and today millions of people cannot afford to buy food. Millions have lost their source of livelihoods. Hundreds of thousands of women and girls will live with the scars of domestic violence and abuse. Tens of thousands of children may never go back to school unless we are providing alternatives for them. The pandemic will have an enduring impact on all aspects of society, and today we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg. I believe that today's colloquium is critical to help us prepare and act over the coming years. Covid-19 and the consequences of the pandemic, I'm afraid, will be with us for many years to come. In your discussions today, I think it's really important to look at the lessons learnt, the best practices that we have been able to identify, and also to clearly identify the factors that we can or cannot influence. And most importantly, how we will mitigate those risks over the coming months. Despite our collective early efforts, some communities suffered from long delays in assistance delivery. Disruptions in the global supply chains were beyond our control. Such elements needs to be featured in our reflections today so that we are better prepared for the challenges to come. I assume this will also be a challenge in terms of how we go further in terms of then acquiring and distributing vaccinations when they become available. And I also invite you to look at the opportunities that we have in terms of building back better. The opportunities in terms of smarter delivery, in terms of being able to make sure that our meagre resources go further. The disruptions and negative consequences of the pandemic are now a space for us to build bridges, reinforce our partnerships, build new partnerships, as well as creating new opportunities. This also means that we should be thinking beyond temporary solutions and look at more sustainable solutions in terms of the humanitarian response in the coming months. Having sufficient resources as well as access will remain major challenges in the coming months and in 2020 on. And I'm hoping and I'm trusting that 2021 will become a year of greater collective action, efforts and solidarity. Only having been a limited time in Nigeria, one of the things I have found is that Nigerian people are amongst the most resilient in the world. And I know that together, next year, we will scale up our efforts to save lives and alleviating suffering, and also look towards, together, making a better future for the many vulnerable people post-COVID-19. So I'd like to thank you all and wish you all the best for fruitful deliberations today.
It is my utmost pleasure to be here today with stakeholders that shaped the humanitarian response during the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm confident to acknowledge that in your various capacities and mandates, your assistance provided humanitarian interventions to vulnerable Nigerians. You demonstrated resilience in the face of tremendous challenges and risks. Ladies and gentlemen, it should be noted that the COVID-19 pandemic reinforced the reality of the multiplicity and complexity of humanitarian needs during the crisis, as well as proliferation of new actors, forms, and modalities of response. Likewise, it must be noted that humanitarian perspectives and practices are broadening from just catering for basic survival needs to providing durable solutions and sustainable development for the vulnerable. In its intervention, the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs operated with a multifaceted approach with due focus on the most disadvantaged and vulnerable of society, including refugees, IDPs, and various categories of persons of concern. The operative mechanism of targeted social interventions with context-specific approach of the ministry's COVID-19 response committee pulled in all the agencies supervised by the ministry in a coordinated, collaborative strategy of delivering as a unit. As observed from the experience of the COVID-19 response in Nigeria and globally, it is obvious that traditional institutions, that is state and non-state, international or local, must work coherently to avoid unhealthy practices